While Eric Frankenstein and Rick Flag Sr. investigate Professor McPherson's home, they unintentionally stumble upon her own corpse, which causes them to realize that the McPherson who spoke to Waller was an imposter, and that Task Force M is being tasked to kill Princess Rostovik under false pretenses. So Flag tries to call Rostovik to warn her about Task Force M returning to assassinate her, but the fake McPherson returns home and turns out to be none other than the iconic DC villain Clayface. So Flag and Frankenstein attempt to sneak out of the house, but they are caught by the notorious shapeshifter, and of course a battle ensues. And it was actually a pretty cool action sequence, one that shows us how Clayface may appear to be in the proper DCU. And I admit that I don't know a lot about Clayface's character, but I was genuinely surprised to see him appear in this show, since he is a more well-known character than any of the Creature Commandos themselves. So it'll be interesting to see if his presence here will affect our perception of him in the larger DCU, especially if Mike Flanagan is working on a solo Clayface film. Though I'm still not clear on if that movie is going to be set in the DCU or in the Matt Reeves' Batman universe. But much like most of the past few episodes, Episode 5 spends a lot of time focusing on the backstory of one of its main characters, and that character happens to be Eric Frankenstein himself. And as is the case with the other characters, his backstory is filled with heartbreak and tragedy. Only the tragedy in his story isn't exactly the same as the tragedy found in the other characters' backstories. See, following the incident at Victor's mansion in 1831, Eric is found by an old medicine woman named Bogdana. Bogdana grows fond of Eric while she nurses him back to health, but after he makes a full recovery, Eric sets out to find the bride again. This makes Bogdana sad since she knows that the bride doesn't love Eric back, but also because she'll have to live alone again after Eric leaves. So in order to ensure that Bogdana wouldn't be alone, Eric kills her. And fuck. Even though Bogdana was only introduced in this episode, I have to admit that her death was pretty damn heartbreaking. She was a good and innocent old woman who just didn't want to be alone. She didn't deserve to go out like that. And Frankenstein's decision to kill an innocent old woman only shows how different he is from the other Creature Commandos. Because the tragedy in Eric's story doesn't necessarily come from the fact that someone else had inflicted pain upon him, but that he is the one who inflicted pain upon somebody else. And that definitely makes me have mixed feelings about his character as a whole, which it's supposed to. So the writing here is really damn good, especially since it reminded me of the Penguin's decision to kill his right-hand man, Victor. Shit felt like a punch to the gut. But before the episode comes to an end, a critically injured Flag convinces Eric to tell the bride the truth. But I'm not exactly sure if Eric picked up on what Flag was putting down here. Because instead of telling Bride about how Amanda Waller was manipulated into thinking that Princess Rostovik deserved to be killed, I can totally see Eric telling the Bride the truth about how he feels for her. Which would definitely be funny, but I guess we'll see what'll happen on the next episode of Creature Commandos once it gets released on Thursday. And before I end this review, I'd just like to say that walking your cat is a perfectly normal activity that is not suspicious in the slightest. I do it all the time, and it's totally normal. It's not a bad omen, and there's nothing weird about it whatsoever. But I appreciate anyone who took the time to hear my full thoughts on this episode, so as always, thanks for watching.